Karma means action, karma also means reaction. So astrology is all about the science of understanding the reactions to your actions.
If we talk about Mangalik, they say that Mangalik should be married to Mangalik.
There's a lot of truth about it, but there's also something that is not true. But in reality, 50% of the population, they're all Mangalik.
But does all these things affect, like if eating non-veg, drinking alcohol, smoking ganja, does that affect your...
Definitely. Like, what comes out of the mouth has to be clean, but also what goes in the mouth should be clean. So you should have a clean diet. Then you should have a clean heart.
First of all, thank you so much for taking out time for us. Like, I think I told you last week that we really need to shoot a podcast and you were like, I'm up for it.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much for asking me.
So the first question that I want to ask is that how does your childhood look like? Because now I just know you from more than a couple of years.
Yeah.
But if I just want to take you down to that memory lane and tell people that what was your childhood like?
Sure. Things have changed a lot.
Yeah.
I was not always like this. My childhood was nice. I grew up in Germany and my parents are very well established. Like my mom's a doctor, my dad's an engineer. So we grew up, we had like the biggest house on the street and in all honesty, like childhood wise, I had everything. Like every year, we would go to Switzerland for skiing, we would go to Greece for swimming, we would go I was a very spoiled child, you know?
Yeah.
So that was my childhood. And then when I was a teenager, things started changing for different reasons, you know. I was in high school and I started feeling that all this glamour, all this like high standard of life, like you had a big house and I had the top floor, not the room, I had the top floor. Yeah, so I had everything, but somehow it was not very fulfilling. And even I could look at my dad, he's an engineer, making good money, you know. He bought a Porsche recently. He's always telling me like how he's enjoying life. He's retired, but I could see he's not happy. And I looked at my mom, she's a doctor, she was earning even more. And also, like, she was always working, like she was not there actually. My dad, he used to cook for us, he used to do the laundry, and it's very different to India, okay? Yeah. But I was working, cooking, doing the laundry and cleaning the house. My mom was just working. Okay, so basically then I felt like I don't want to become like them, right? Like just working so hard and then have nothing to enjoy. So then as a teenager, my life changed a bit and maybe we won't go into it, but yeah, so I went to the other end of just, you know, skipping school and enjoying life. Yeah. And I did a few years of that, but I realized that also that is not really fulfilling, you know? Like, I tried many things to enjoy as a teenager, nothing worked. So with 18, I thought enough is enough. Yeah. And then instead of going to university, I left and I started traveling the world to look for answers and to find something more.
That's so nice. But I think everyone goes through that stage. Like as we were talking, the teenage time is like that, you know, we tend to look out for different things. We tend to find happiness in different things. But I was talking to someone today and he was also mentioning the same thing. He was like, you start finding happiness in one thing and you don't find happiness in that and then you look out for another thing. And then it's the third and then it's the fourth. But you actually need to go inside to be really happy.
Actually, I was trying that, but it was not enough. Like I remember with 18, just before I left traveling, I started doing meditation. I got some books on yoga and I always was interested in India and the East. I actually had this idea, like with 18, I leave home and then I go traveling, I go to India, I find a guru. Like kind of I was there from my teenage years already. And I was
But have you heard about like finding a guru and all those things before or like how?
Yeah, I must have read some books. Like I read Siddhartha, it's a German book by a German author, but it's about Eastern philosophy. I read that was 16. And it was very nice. And then I read some other books on like Buddhism, on Zen, on Eastern philosophy, and I resonated with it. I tried to sit down and meditate, but it was not really working. Like I tried it, but it was not. I needed something more. Like I needed like teachers or some scientific knowledge.
So then what did you ended up on?
Oh, it's a long story. But I started traveling and to keep the story short, like after a very short time, I was meeting all these super spiritual people like wherever I went. Like I didn't even go to India first. I went to New Zealand, when I came to Australia, then I went to India. Later I ended up in Mexico. I just was in South Africa, so I traveled a bit. But I started meeting all these spiritual people wherever I went, and not that everyone could give me the full package, but they gave me like a right step into the right direction, which led me eventually ending up in a temple in Australia, and living there for a few years.
That's
like
nice.
I'm living like in an ashram, and that was my introduction to actually like India, Hindu, or just sort of this whole like spiritual culture.
And then astrology happened to you?
And then astrology happened, yeah. Because, you know, if you live in an ashram with a guru, it's not so much about worldly matters. Like astrology is quite worldly, right? It's like, how can you, like most clients who come to me, they either come because of their marriage is failing, or they want to get married, or they have some other problem in their marriage, or they come because of their career, their visa, or usually that's it. Relationships, career, sometimes health, you know. So it's very worldly matters.
Yeah.
And if you live in an ashram, like how I was doing, it's not really about that. So in ashram, it was more about how to get free from this material realm, how to get out of this, right? How to lift up your consciousness. But then astrology is much more about, not about just how to get out of the entanglement, but it's about how to understand how entangled are you, right? Exactly, like where does your karma have you? Who are you? Like what is that? How is karma binding you? So just after I moved out of the ashram, I saw one astrologer, and I told him that I was living as a monk for 5 years and was very nice, but maybe I don't think I can do 50 years. You understand? Yeah? Like I started living in an ashram with 20 and I moved out with 25, and with 25, you know, all the desires, they come up, and I really like that, but I understood I can't do it for my whole life. So then the astrologer, he looked at my chart, my birth chart, my birth time, and he saw the karma that I came in with this world and where I'm at. And he made a lot of very accurate predictions. Like he told me about my parents, about my mom, about my childhood issues. He told me a few years and dates, and I was like, yeah, like this guy, he knows what he's speaking about. And then he also told me ahead in the future what I can do to align myself with what I'm meant to do, right? Materially speaking. And I was very impressed with him. So a few months after the reading, I was thinking about this, and I asked him, where did you learn all of this? Okay, I want to do this too. Tell me, can I do this too? And then he connected me to this tradition from which he has learned astrology, and I've been studying with them since then. So this is how I came to astrology. So after learning first how to get out of this entanglement, living in the ashram, I wanted to understand how is everyone entangled. Because sometimes when you tell people like, oh, like, you know, this material, this world, it's like, it's binding you and you're actually not free, like karma is controlling you. If you tell that to people, they think you're crazy. Like they just tell me like that, if I would speak to them like that, they would tell me like, this is not practical. Like I'm just worried about bringing enough money home. I'm worried about my partner. I'm worried about my children, all the spiritual stuff. I have no time to think about it.
That's right.
But then if they come to me as an astrologer and I tell them, oh yeah, looks like, you know, that year was really tough for your marriage. Looks like that year your child was born. That year your child's health was not so good. Like that year you lost your job. They're like, yeah, tell me more. What can I do?
Take more money.
Exactly. So I like it because even though I'm I like to think of myself as a spiritual person, I like astrology because it also helps me to connect to everyone, right?
That's so nice.
To those people who just seek to improve their material situation.
That's so nice. So you've mentioned karma more than 3-4 times, like when So I just have 2 questions with regards to it. So first one is that what is karma exactly with regards to astrology? And the second one, I think we can relate both the questions, is that what I understand is astrology is basically the collection of your past life karmas and the results that we are getting in this life karma.
Yeah.
So how true is that and what is karma? So all these confusions are the questions of the basic people out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So what is your take on that?
That's a good question. Because I noticed even though karma, the teachings of karma come from India, I noticed even within India, many people speak about karma, but not many people actually understand it.
Yeah.
So to answer your first question, what is karma? And how is it related to astrology? Well, in one sense, astrology is the science of karma, right? Karma means action, karma also means reaction. So astrology is all about the science of understanding the reactions to your actions, right? The reactions which made you who you are today and the future reactions of your actions today. And you also mentioned that karma is that you can just mention about past life karma, which made us who we are today.
Yeah.
And I want to expand on that. It's not just our past life karma, but even our actions every day can alter our karma. Most important is an astrologer, he can see your samchita karma. He can see the sum total of all your lives, but he most likely won't tell you so much about it because you're not going to experience in this life. Why would you be worried, right? He can see your prarabdha karma, which is the normal birth chart, the normal Rashi chart. That is your prarabdha karma, the karma that you were born with. And then he can also see, if he's a good astrologer, he will also see the kriyamana karma. What have you done in your life until the point when you meet him? And that he can see from the prashna chart, from the time that you approach him.
Okay.
And so he can see if he's a good astrologer, are you suffering at this moment because of the fruits from your actions in your previous life?
Or the present life.
Or the present life. And most of the time, people are suffering because of the actions from their previous life. Maybe 1 in 10, you see that it's something wrong in this life. So the astrologer can see that. So now, what he will advise you is there's 4 types and there's 3 intensities. There is drita karma, which means karma that is fixed. You can't change it. It's like written in stone. Maybe you can, but it will be very, very difficult. And some karmas are like that. Most are not. Then there is adrita karma. You add I in the beginning, it's the opposite, right? It is not fixed karma, easily changeable. And then there's drita, adrita karma, which is in between. Okay. You can change it, but it needs a lot of effort.
And who can change it? We?
You can change it.
How?
You can change it.
I mean, I'm just off the question.
No, perfect. So you can change it by changing your lifestyle, by changing your actions. And depending on how severe is the intensity of the karma, of the drita karma, you will need different strength of remedial measures or different strength of actions.
Okay.
So actually astrological remedies are very broad. Some people think of astrological remedies like you wear a gemstone, you chant a mantra, you do a puja. Those things exist and definitely there's something to them if done properly, right? But there's much more than that.
Since you've mentioned remedies, just a very common question which everyone has is that if we talk about Mangalik, there's a way, I don't know if it's a myth or it's not. They say that Mangalik should be married to Mangalik. And if not, then they get the boy or the girl. I think the boy get married to the tree before the marriage is done. And that is because they think that there's a risk to the life of the partner.
Yes.
And if we do it to the tree, then tree dies.
Yeah.
So how true is that?
There's a lot of truth about it, but there's also something that is not true. And what is true about it, that actually, there is what I call Kuja dosha, right? Or Mangalik dosha, right? Having Mars in a position which will impact the longevity of your relationship. And one of the classics describes that a person who is Mangalik, his partner will die early. And because this classic mentions that maybe it's Shara Valley, maybe it's another classic, I cannot remember. That's why everyone is so afraid. But in reality, 50% of the population, they're all Mangalik, right? A person's Mangalik, if Mars is out of 12 houses in astrology, if Mars is in 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, some people say 12 as well, then this person's Mangalik, right? And then you can look at that as well from Moon, from Venus. So actually you can even make everyone Mangalik if you wanted to. So, and we see all these Mangalik people, most people don't know astrology. So actually, especially in Western culture, I think in the speed that Western people date, you know, every person must have had at least like 5 Mangalik partners in their life, and they're still alive, right?
Yeah.
So we don't see this dictum coming true that people who marry someone who's Mangalik will die. So that dictum is not true, but a person who is Mangalik, that person's relationship can be very much afflicted, right? It is the first signification, is one of the significations in the chart that me as an astrologer will make me think, will make me worry, oh, will this relationship last of this person? Does this person have enough good karma to sustain a healthy relationship? And then if other factors agree, then yes, I can predict your first marriage is not going to work out.
Or is it?
If other factors agree, right? Basically how we mentioned about the different types of karma, right? So if it's only Mangalik dosha, depending on how severe is that Mangalik dosha, let's say it's a Mangalik dosha, just a light Mangalik dosha, then we can say it's easily changeable karma because it's just one indication. But if we look at the chart and then the house of relationships is destroyed, the lord of relationships is destroyed, Venus is destroyed, and Mangalik dosha. Oh, do you want to get married? It's not going to be easy. So, so to answer your question, and then in India they do this, they get married to a tree. Yeah, definitely that is one way of addressing that it can help. But we must also say that for that, the pujari who performs the ceremony, he must be properly trained. Like he must do everything in the right way. He must recite the mantras in the correct way. So it very much depends on the pujari. You know, in India, there's so many astrologers, so many pujaris, so many babajis, so many yogis. And
I know. I think I visited one astrologer and he was like, 2 years ago, he was like, you will definitely get married this year. And if that doesn't happen, I'll leave astrology.
Ooh.
And it's been 2 years.
Oh, that is powerful. Because as an astrologer, you should not say a lie.
Yeah.
Because if you say a lie, right, then it says that you lose the power of prediction, right? So in India, we see some astrologers I've seen, they would practice only to say the truth, or some practice not to speak for like years.
Why I have not so much trust in astrology is because maybe I've not dealt with someone who can tell me exactly how things are and what things are it's going to be in future. And whatever was predicted, it never really came to the picture. So that is why I'm always confused if I should look into astrology or if I should not look into astrology. Is it true? Is it not?
You have a lot of questions there. Let's take one question at a time.
For example, I'm getting married. I take mine and my fiance's chart to the astrologer. And he tells that everything is good and we can go ahead with the
That's a good one. That's a good, perfect.
And we've seen a lot of people doing that, and still we see a lot of divorce rate. Divorce rate is going up.
Definitely.
So if people are already checking their charts, then why is divorce rate going so? Like, I think there should be zero divorce rate if
100%. So basically, there would not be zero, but there should be less.
Yeah.
And one of the main reasons is that not many astrologers do compatibility properly, first of all, especially in India. Like in India, they're really obsessed with the Kuta system. Have you ever heard of the Kutas? Like it's very popular. People, they check their moon nakshatra and then they get the percentage. Have you ever heard of the percentage before?
No.
Anyone who has been like to an astrologer for compatibility in India will understand this. Like the astrologer will say you're 80% compatible, you're 90% compatible. It's a very common system.
I think there's a score chart, like 36.
Score chart, exactly, 36, that's the one.
But
And many people use that, but actually that's just 1/20th of the whole equation, right? And I have spoken to many people. I know many married Indians here who got married because of this, but this is actually not, it's true, but it's just 1/20th of the equation.
One aspect of the entire
thing. That's one entire thing. So, you know how they say that that the wrong information
is more dangerous.
Is more dangerous than having no information. So also in our modern world, there's so much misinformation. Like people that try to learn astrology through YouTube, or people that try to even learn spirituality through YouTube, or like go to an astrologer who is not really qualified, like who has just picked up something here and there. It's not going to work. So all these marriages failing for persons who've checked their compatibility, I would wonder with whom did they check it and how was it done? I think maybe there was something wrong in the process.
But
Number
we don't
one,
know, right?
we don't know, but we could look at a respectable astrologer. We could see how many, what is his rate?
Predictions.
What is his predictions, right? Number two, that's number one, right? Number two is, some people have really difficult marriage karma, okay? So imagine one person comes to you, they have super difficult marriage karma, and they get married with someone who has also very difficult marriage karma. And then, I mean, you're not going to tell them as an astrologer that like, you know, your romantic life is ruined and your romantic life is ruined. You're not going to tell them that, right? So you just give them, you put them together, you recommend them maybe some remedial measures, maybe you give them some mantras and some other things. If there's ever any problem, okay, you take shelter of this. So you try your best, but also not everyone has the karma to have like a happy marriage, right? We have to consider that as to that's the second point. But many people do. So if they do it properly, it will definitely ease, because we all have a different nature. We have a different body, right? We have a different mind. And certain bodies and minds just go better with certain bodies and minds. And the astrologer will tell. Like in the same way how you go to, have you ever been to an Ayurvedic doctor?
Yeah.
Right? And you can tell your constitution.
Yes, from the Nari.
Exactly. So the astrologer can also see what's your constitution, right? You don't have to go to the Ayurvedic doctor technically, the astrologer can see. So he can see the constitution of your body, so he can also see the constitution of your mind.
How?
Because of your karma.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Wait, what do you...
heard that for the first time. Maybe I should visit more astrologers. I should ask them for the podcast more. Oh, I didn't do that. That's nice.
So that's what I think. And there was another question, I think, but I cannot recollect it. I think you asked three things.
Is astrology legit?
Legit. Definitely. I hear this really nice quote that my practice of the science doesn't make the science useless. You know, just because someone practices something the wrong way, it doesn't mean that the science is useless. That is like, you know, throwing out the baby with the bathwater, you know? So in the same way also, these days there's so much misinformation about astrology, there's so much misuse of astrology, like I could write an entire book about misuse of astrology.
I think you should.
But just because there is mispractice and misuse, it doesn't mean that the science is useless. Actually, it's a very ancient, very sacred science that is extremely powerful if properly applied.
When you talk about misuse of astrology, like what is it exactly about?
Oh, for example, I can give this example of this one astrologer I know in India. She learned from her family tradition, and sometimes you get these village astrologers from family tradition. Sometimes they're actually really amazing, and sometimes not. But she's in the first group, and she was just telling to me recently how this mother came to her because of her son. And her son was like 10, I think, and she said that she's not performing so good in school, like in science, you know, math, like all these subjects. He's not getting good grades.
I think he was like me.
Yeah, what can we do? So then she looked at this chart, and she saw he has this really good combinations for like design, maybe even architecture. Like he was much more creative, but not engineering. And she tried to convince the mother that this is just not his field, but he'd be really good in that other field. But the mother, she was not happy. She went to another astrologer, and the other astrologer told her that we can help you. You know, there's this yagya we can do, the sacrifice, this big sacrifice of many lakhs of rupees, like many thousands of dollars. But we can do it, and we make your son an engineer. So my friend, she was telling her, like, don't do this, like you can ruin your son's life, you know? Because either this yagya is not going to work, right? And the person doesn't know what he's doing. But maybe, small chance, they actually get the person, like some tantric priest who actually knows what he's doing. And they're like really trying to change reality on a subtle level, on a causal level. They're trying to create something that is not really there, trying to alter something, a bit like black magic, right? They're trying to, this child, he's not an engineer, but they tried to get it in, like they can ruin this child. So she was warning her, don't do it. And this is kind of the wrong use of astrology, right? Can you understand? Like how bad you're trying to change like another person, like completely. Like this is not how astrology should be utilized. Astrology, you can utilize it to understand who am I and how I can engage my skills in the best way. When is the right time to do what, right? How can I live, like how can I align myself in the best way, or what can I do to fill some gaps? But not like that, not to control people, not to change people around, right? Another example she was giving of wrong use of astrology was, she went to her and she said, oh, like my marriage is really bad. And I went to this other astrologer, and the other astrologer told me there's 2 marriages in my chart. So can I leave now? Or really true story. This is not how you should use astrology.
So when we talk about 2 weddings, what I've heard, I might be wrong as well. If you look at the hand, and if there's one line between these 2 lines, then you have 1 wedding. If there's 2 lines, then you have 2 weddings. That is, I can be wrong as well. It's just my friend who told me this. Is this something related to astrology or?
Actually, palmistry is the sister science of astrology. Palmistry, Ayurveda, Numerology, they're all sister sciences of astrology, so they have a connection. I have not studied palmistry for many years, right? So I cannot give you a complete dictum on that. And there will be many palmists outside in the world who might not be trained, but some actually know what they're doing. And in the same way how I can look at your birth chart, and the time you were born and the planets in the sky, and I know who you are, right? In the same way also a palmist, you can look at your hand and you can see who you are. Like in the same way you go to the supermarket, there's a QR code, you scan the QR code. So also nature is giving us signs.
Nice.
You can also look at your face, and you can read from your face where the planets are.
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of the astrologer back in India, and he told me that his grandfather, he never used to ask your birth date and the time. He used to sit in front of you, and at that point of time where the planets and stars are aligned, he can tell you through just by looking at you that what is your karma look like and what is your coming in the future. So that was really impressive. I've never experienced that kind of thing, but that is like, I think it might take a lot of years for them to just study that thing. It's not easy to, but don't you think it's too much pressure on you as well as an astrologer to read the charts and to tell people what might...
Definitely, very true. And actually that is why in ancient culture, the persons who would study astrology were only very few. And before they would study astrology, first they would learn Sanskrit, right? For a few years, 10 years, maybe they would learn Sanskrit. Learning Sanskrit is not easy, right?
It's not easy.
Then they would go to their Jyotishi, to their guru, and then first they would learn Ganita and Gola, like astronomy, mathematics, how to calculate the chart. Another 10 years are gone, right? And then eventually after 20 years or many, many years of dedication, surrender, high studies, then they would learn astrology. So only those persons who were very qualified, had a lot of reason and logic, sharp intelligence, also a lot of wisdom, only those people would do astrology. Because if you are a qualified astrologer, you're making big decisions, right? You can tell people like, you could marry, like, you help people whom to marry, right? You can help people like, you advise people
or not. To open up the business or not.
Open up a business or not, to sell a house now or not, like all these things, big choices. So not everyone can do that. So definitely there is a lot of pressure. And that's why only the most qualified people would do it. But these days, everyone is trying to be an astrologer, right? Like people who don't know anything, they watch some YouTube videos, they just read a little bit here and there, they read some magazine. It doesn't work like that.
I was told by some astrologer that I should be an astrologer.
Okay.
I mean, I was like...
Also, there's a spectrum. Like, we're not saying that only like some kind of elite is an astrologer. There's a spectrum to it. And everyone who puts some decent amount, like a few years, can can actually get something good out of it. But I just want to warn, like, just from like doing your own astrology, like how people sometimes they look at the horoscope every day or something like this. It really works. Like in the same way how when you're sick, right? You don't necessarily diagnose yourself if you're really sick. You go to a doctor who has studied for many years or a decade. And the way also in astrology, he is a doctor, right? He's a brahmana. He's a doctor, he's a teacher.
So, like, that was one of the questions that my friend, every Sunday, he looks at his astrology the next week. So what is the prediction for the next week? So what happens is that anytime something negative happens in the next week, he can relate to the horoscope post that he's read on Sunday. So I think it creates that predominant image in your head that this is going to happen. So it might happen or might not happen.
Yes.
But they're still in their head that you've read this thing in their horoscope and this will happen.
Very true. And actually, your thoughts also have a power.
Yeah.
Right? Your thoughts, your feelings, they stay with you. And in one sense, this is a different topic, but people speak about like the law of attraction. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So and there's truth to it. It's not the full truth, but there's truth to it. So the whole day, if you read this horoscope and you read about this evil thing that's going to happen and you just think about it so much, it can actually happen.
Yeah.
Just by the power of your of your consciousness, of your awareness.
Even if it's not there in your charts?
It can. If you just think about it, like in the same way how when I was learning about longevity calculations, how long is a person going to live, right? When is he going to die?
Can we calculate that as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, is it?
Definitely, yeah.
When am I going to die?
So basically, but the point I want to make is astrologers who, when they study longevity, then they do mantras to protect themselves because they're studying longevity. They get this frequency of death into their life, right? Yeah. So actually, things can happen.
That's so true.
And then longevity actually takes many years. Like there's different spectrums of how good you are, and there's some astrologers which really specialize only on longevity. And especially those people, they really want to protect themselves because the whole day they're just thinking about death and how you're going to die and when you're going to die. And just putting this in an example, right? I know different other topics we were studying and people, they just start vomiting and because you're associating with that frequency.
Yeah, that's so true.
So what you're thinking of is very powerful. So ideally you want to always cultivate good thoughts, right? You want to cultivate good thoughts, good memories, good experiences. Otherwise it will cause disease.
So they should not read the horoscope
Not saying, I mean, I'm not so convinced, like read the horoscope like in a magazine or like some app or...
But the question is that, see, if you look at the birth chart, I'm Aries. But if you look at the modern, like the way I was born, 13th of August, it's Leo. So which one to look at? Like that's the confusion.
Yes, that's a good one as well. First of all, before even like looking into magazines and reading predictions, even that, before you go there, first actually you would have to understand some basics, right? And first of all, Western astrology, very used in Western astrology, which maybe also has infiltrated India to some extent.
Yeah.
They use a completely different zodiac, first of all, right? They use a different zodiac. So often the planets, they will be in a different sign to in Vedic astrology. And people often get it mixed up, like in the West, but also in India, I've seen people get it mixed up. And then number two is also that, like what sign do you look at? Do you look at your ascendant? Do you look at your moon sign? Do you look at your sun sign? Like you once mentioned Aries,
Sun sign, yeah.
you once mentioned Leo.
Yeah.
So sometimes people are not so clear about it and they mix it up. Also different astrology traditions, sometimes they have different emphasis. Like I focus on the ascendant, most traditions focus on the ascendant. In India, many traditions also focus on the moon actually. So, and different things might have worked at different time in different contexts. So it is very not so simple as of just looking at this one single factor and then looking in a magazine.
That's true.
So usually I would not really recommend that so much. Much better is if they're really interested, they can contact someone who actually knows, who's actually qualified, and they can test as well, right? Is the person qualified? And also they should check not just is this person qualified as an astrologer, but also what other qualification does this person have. Is this person a good person, right? Because it could be this person, he could be a good astrologer, but for some reason he is mischievous in other ways, right? And obviously at some point he will get the reaction, but for now he's still, enjoying his punya karma, his good credits.
Yeah.
So he's good in astrology, but then maybe he's drinking, maybe smoking ganja to back, it definitely will affect his predictive ability in the future. But you want to check those things as well. You should be an exemplary human being. You should be a good astrologer. If you're a spiritual person, you should be a spiritual person, right?
But does all these things affect, like if eating non-veg, drinking alcohol, smoking ganja, does that affect your...
Definitely. And astrology has to live actually in real Parahora Shastra, Parashara Muni, he gives the qualification of an astrologer. Number one, he has to always speak the truth, and also he has to, what comes out of the mouth has to be clean, but also what goes in the mouth should be clean. So also he should have a clean diet. Then he should have a clean heart. He should be compassionate, and he should be devotional. Like he should have a clean heart, a pure heart. There should be dharma residing in his heart. And he should always respect elders and tradition. He should not go against tradition.
So this is for someone who is an astrologer.
Yeah.
What about the people who are coming to get themselves checked? Does eating non-veg and alcohol affect them as well?
Those people who, obviously it will affect them because they are accruing papa karma, right? They're getting negative reactions for that. But they can still go to the astrologer and get advice. And also, different people have different karma. Some persons are predisposed, they just want to eat meat. Like some people, they're naturally born to have this really strong drive. Doesn't mean they can't change it to reduce the sinful reaction
And
they're getting.
as well.
Definitely, it will benefit them from a karmic point of view, from a health point of view.
From compassion point of view.
From a compassion point of view, but we can understand some people, they're born and it's just they're just wired in a certain way with the karma that they came in with, so it would take them maybe they have to do some practices first to change it if they want. Like some people just can't change like that. Because maybe they have this really strong karma to just be like meat eater, right? But then the astrologer can help them, and they say like, oh, you feel like you understood that you don't want to do it and you feel like it's hurting you and you want to change it. Then the astrologer can help them, you can give them a mantra, can give them something to change that on a causal level, right? Because if the cause is removed, then it won't even pop up in your mind.
Yeah, that's so true.
But some people suffer from addictions and they just can't stop. Have you ever seen that before? I see people like that a lot.
I had addiction of eating sugar a lot. It's not a big addiction, but it's still an addiction.
Yeah. So then you can try to address that by just stopping it on the gross level. That would be a gross remedy, but I said gross remedies are the weakest, right?
Yeah,
so then you can address it on a subtle level, giving them knowledge and education. Some people it works, some people the addiction is so strong, you give them a karmic remedy to help as well, to remove that karma, that cause that is pushing them. Give them the right mantra or whatever it is in that case, and then they can stop. So in that case, it doesn't really matter where you are at this point, but if you approach an astrologer in that way, he can help by giving remedies in that way.
What do you think about manifestation? Because if you look at a lot of people who are famous right now, they talk a lot about manifestation. That I was reading one of the topics. I was listening to this video of Jim Carrey, and he said that he wrote down a check of $100,000 to himself 4 years before. On a specific date, and 2 days before that date, that money was in his account. So there's a lot of talk on manifestation, that people think and it happens with them. They manifest that this is going to happen with them.
Yeah.
So with regards to astrology, what is your take on manifestation?
That's a very nice question. And I touched on it briefly earlier when we spoke about what you think can attract you. We spoke about it in a negative way. But it's true, it can also happen in a positive way. But we must understand that you have a certain karma that is due, right? And there's a spectrum, how much you can move within that, but you cannot move that far, right? So all these influencers who are like extremely popular, who are very rich, maybe very beautiful, and they're speaking about the law of attraction and how it helped them to become who they are, you know. Technically, those are all people with really good karma in those realms, who now having millions of followers, who may be partially financing them, you know, who have really bad karma and who are buying in on this false hope that they will also be successful in that way. So that is what I think of it. But definitely, if you have certain thoughts, you can definitely attract that, particularly in more spiritual realms. Like, for example, how I was seeking answers, I was seeking a guru, truth, and years later ended up in a temple and all of that, right? So in one sense, I did attract that, and everyone can do it. I feel it many times. But then if you think about attracting like $1 million to your bank account, I've not seen it so many times. Like I've not like seen it really work, especially if you don't, if the person does not have big money karma. Not really seen it work.
So do you think all these money, big cars, big houses is from your karmic reaction?
What do you think where it comes from?
I think
Hard work.
Like if I talk about spiritual perspective, yes, it does. Because I was reading one of this Chapai in Ramayana, which says, Suno Bharat Bhavi Prabal, Bilak Koha Muninath, Hani Labi Jeevan Maran, Yash Apjas Vidhihat. So that means profit loss, fame, defame, Hani Labi, life and death. So profit loss, life, death, fame, defame. These 6 things are in the hands of destiny or in the God. Apart from this, everything is in our hand, which left us with not much of a choice.
Very true, very true. So
that is why I wanted to ask you that.
So it's in the hands of God, right? We can also say it's in the hands of time, right?
Yeah.
And in Krishna Bhagavad Gita says, I am time, right? So time controls everyone, right? God controls everyone in the form of time. So now the astrologer, he's just reading time. What we're doing, we're just looking at time basically. Like I look at the time you were born, and how do we measure time? Actually, we don't measure time with a watch. Actually, you measure time by the movement of the sun and the moon, right? Because they create day and night. They create the month and the year and the week. Without the sun and the moon, there's no time, right?
Yeah.
Without the luminaries, no time. So the astrologer, he's just studying time, the quality of time, which also means he's studying actually God. What is God's desire in one sense? What is God's desire for this person on a karmic level, on a material level? And then there's different ways to address God, right? Or time to pacify this matter. And this is where all these remedies come in, like all these pujas, yajnas, mantras, homas, fasting, temples. Those are different ways of addressing.
Yeah. One more question.
Yeah.
I had 2 more questions, but I've added one to the second last one. Does numerology helps? Because we've seen a lot of reels these days getting famous, which says that if you're number 1, these are the characteristics that you should fall into, and if number 4, then and a lot of people are looking into it.
Yeah.
So does that work?
Yeah. Numerology is also sister science of astrology. So there is truth to it, there's scripture, there's text to it, where all of this explained, there's a science. And I think especially these days I've also noticed it getting popular. Primarily, I think because in its application, it is a bit easier to get started. Like to really understand your birth chart, for you as a lay person, you at least have to study like a year or 2, like to really understand a bit. To see the first thing, like at least you need a few months. But with numerology, it's very fast. And then the reason for that is because numerology, it's a bit more generalized. There's truth to it. Like from a Vedic point of view, everything in this world is connected. Like actually you can read anything.
So for example, if I am 13, so I am number 4. So all the people who are born as a number 4 should have a similar kind of character.
There will be some commonality. But it is very general. It is very general because for the very same reason that there is like only 10 options, right? And there's 7 billion people or 8 billion people. So putting all these 800,000 people in the same group, it has to be general.
Yeah.
But it will be there. It will be there. Like in the same way also, the day you were born, it will affect you. Every person who will be born on a Tuesday, they will have a competitive edge to them. Because Tuesday is Mars Day, right? So there is a science that numerology is a bit more general in the same way like the statement of your personality according to the day you're born. It is a bit more general, but there will be truth to it.
So nice. So, in what we try to do is when we are making a video, when we are making a reel, we think that how is it that this information can help people. So my last question to you is that what is one thing that you would like to suggest people out there who are looking for astrologer, who need help to read their charts? So what is one thing that you would like to tell them that can really help them?
So it depends where this person is at. So for different persons, according to their level of consciousness, there will be different answers, right? On a very initial level for person just hearing about astrology, for example, or who looks a little bit, who knows maybe his horoscope, maybe he knows one or two things here and there. What would help, is them to appreciate this understanding of karma and how this life, it's a product of their past lives and how also this life will have a future.
Yeah.
And to understand this and to actually really understand who you are in this greater interplay, and to also to understand what is your baggage that you came into this world with and how to walk with it, right?
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, like how to
walk with, like,
how to walk with it.
Again? Yeah, that was really
like
nice.
like it's important to understand, like, who are you, right? What is that baggage that you came into this world with and how you can walk with it, how you can make the most out of it, how you can remove your blockages and how you can use your opportunities.
That's so nice.
That is my answer to them. And if studying astrology by themselves will help, maybe. Otherwise, asking someone, that can help. And then, depending on how far they go this track, many people come, especially to an astrologer or to astrology, because there's some problem, right? Yeah. So after solving their material problems a little bit, after getting their life a bit together, right? Then they should ask themselves, what's next, right? What's next? Like, now I have nice, like now my family life is a bit better, finances maybe a bit better, health maybe a bit better, right?
Now what?
We can't guarantee that for everyone, depending on how it's going, but many people we should all get there, right? We actually, it's our birthright to have a level of comfort, like a level of like, okay, material desires are met to some level, like it's our birthright. But then you should ask, what's next? Like, just more? No, there is a limit to how much you can enjoy this world, right?
That's true.
And then a person should try to ask deeper questions, right? To really try to understand, why am I in this world anyways? And why am I struggling? And how I can resolve that.
That's so nice.
So those are my answers. How can that help?
That's nice. One of our family astrologer, whenever we go to him and we used to give him date of birth and time, he used to look at it for a minute and then he was like, what do you want to ask? You tell me what are you looking into it. And he was like, everything looks good. Like, if everything looks good, then why would I be here? Definitely something is not going good. That's why I'm here and consulting with you.
Yeah.
So,
and that is also true. Sometimes people, they can get a bit possessed by it. Yeah. And it's important to understand there is a utility, right? There's a utility. And it should help you to get to a certain standard of life that you're due, right? But let me tell you, if you have the karma to be like, to have the karma to have a certain standard of life, right? Like, let's say your karma is to be like lower middle class, okay? The astrologer, he might be able to help you to get to upper middle class or like middle class, but he's not going to make you like a billionaire, right? So you also should be realistic about what we can change, how much we can change.
Yeah, that's it.
And astrology can help to maximize, but there is also a limit to it. And after that,
that might come with a cost as well, no? Like, if you are supposed to be upper middle class and then you want to become a millionaire, you might get through astrology, but does that come with the cost?
It depends. Actually, like money, it's represented by Lakshmi, right? You know that, right? And Lakshmi has to be engaged in the service of Lord Vishnu. So also money, if you use it for higher purpose, then it's great. Yeah, you have the karma to be like upper middle class and you become a multi-millionaire. I'm so happy for you, right? Take all this money, do something good with it.
Yeah. And I was reading it somewhere, Lakshmi Ji's Vahan is owl. And the Lakshmi Ji's Vahan is owl. And if you worship Lakshmi Ji without Narayan, Lakshmi might come, but she'll come on owl and she'll make you blind and make you work at night as well. So that was a nice explanation.
I like that. Actually, it was the first time I hear she's Chanchan. You know, she doesn't stay. So if you don't use her properly, she won't stay with you.
I read it, if you don't worship Lakshmi Ji with Narayan or with Krishna, then you gone.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
I think we can end our podcast here. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for giving us time. It was really nice talking to you. I had so many questions and I think I'm convinced that I'm gonna get my birth chart checked from you now to see if my podcast is gonna work or not.
Sure.
Perfect. All good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.